There's a lot of interest from the audience in the role of the energy coach and how that role would be paid for in other types of communities. Justin Lindenmeyer asks, curious how scalable this concept is based upon your experience for larger towns and cities, as you mentioned, where most of the population is centered. Could you hire multiple and give them regional territories to work? How would the additional oversight be necessary to accommodate more energy coaches? And a number of our other audience members are interested in how this would be paid for after the DOE grant is finished, and what you would recommend to a community who doesn't have a grant in terms of how to pay for an energy coach.
There's a couple parts to those answers, and the first is how scalable is this model? And I'm going to go back to the answer is we don't know yet because it's so young. And that means for the step up itself, we want to see how the numbers play out in the coming year. If we can really hit those targets and we basically invest a premium in the energy coach, but the return is a premium in results in terms of transforming the market, that's one model that then we look for its scalability. Within the Better Buildings suite of programs, I mentioned there are numerous other cities that are engaging in some version of that model, and just to use simple language, in various levels of being premium. In some cases, it's a town staff that's been converted to an energy person. In some cases, it's going to be using contractors. In some cases, it's going to be using volunteers or a youth corps. Let's wait and see how their results come back as well. Part of the Better Buildings opportunity is to see what it takes to build this market. In terms of the ability to pay for this afterwards, which may make it more replicable in other communities, the solar project that we're hoping to establish on the roof of the local school will pay a revenue stream to the city if established for 20 years. It's a 20-year project, and so we built that into the proposal as well as a sustainable revenue stream going forward. And so the objective was, once the government grant ended, the town of University Park still needed a reasonable revenue stream coming in order to continue the sort of activities that got started under the grant.
I might also note that a number of small towns, certainly a fairly significant proportion of them, run their own utility services, both energy services and wastewater management. The savings that can be achieved through retrofits in both areas can be tremendous, and so the town itself and the taxpayer themselves have an incentive to fund an energy coach and a program like this to reduce the overall cost over time. So you're looking over time, and a lot of small towns now are beginning to do this kind of forward planning, and so there are ways of funding the program if you start to do that and start to look at ways of improving your own services to the community and reducing the cost of those services. I know that one of the motivating factors around here is the fact that we received a 72% increase in our electrical fees. That it was a energy increase or price increase of 72% that was initiated. I believe it was in July of last year.
Just one other quick part of the answer, Stuart, is if you think back to the objectives that we mentioned at the beginning of the slide presentation, one of them was to create a roadmap for other small towns. And so, indeed, we're using part of the premium of having this federal grant to try and work through some of these issues and commoditize it, so to speak, so that another town that wants to embark upon a similar program doesn't have to go through the learning curve and therefore may be able to pay less of a premium, so to speak, because the twists and turns and steps are all mapped out for them. So we're gunning for a replicable model, but we need some time to see where the numbers come out.
A few other questions on the replicable model. John Sutherland asks if you could talk a bit about the measurement, monitoring, and verification of the energy savings. And if Suzanne has a technology platform which she can engage with the folks who are moving from the audit into the retrofit, and then how that data is collected on the monitoring and verification of those projects in order to reduce some of those transaction costs down the road for other communities who are thinking about implementing this.
Well, if you could see through the screen, you'd see the mayor and I both looking at each other with huge grins on our faces, because I alluded to it during the presentation that this is an area where we feel we're playing catch-up, we're behind, and yet it's also one of those areas where I'm not sure it would have been to our advantage to have been a first mover amongst the Better Building grantees. So let me just, I can lay it out from a technology standpoint pretty quickly. The Pepco Home Performance with Energy Star program makes use of an audit software called Beacon. And so they collect standard building inputs, run it through this software to model potential energy savings. And it's a function of the Maryland Home Performance with Energy Star program. The homeowner commits, and we also sort of underscore this through our sign-up and indemnification form to participate in Step Up, that they will provide a year's worth of historical utility data and a year's worth of future utility data once they've completed whatever intervention they're going to do on their home. The nice thing about the Home Performance with Energy Star program here in Maryland is that it also requires a test-out audit. So they'll retest the home for air leakage, et cetera, and recalibrate those forecasts of what sorts of energy savings ought to be achieved given the measures installed. So this was an opportunity for the town of University Park to leverage an existing program, and they used the Beacon platform for the software. That said, we also want to track our own data, and we have extensive reporting requirements to the Department of Energy on this grant. The Department of Energy has been busy over the last few months finalizing its requirement for what we need to collect and how we're going to upload it, and that is coming online in the next week or two. So I don't know exactly what software program they're going to use for a lot of the audit and building-related data that we're going to send to them, all of which will be done confidentially. It'll be by a task number as opposed to address. So they're just going to get lots of field data, but not necessarily pin it to a particular home. From our standpoint, we wanted to keep things as simple as possible, and so we're looking at what we need to report to the federal government. We're looking at the sort of information that they're already being collected through Beacon, and we are in the process of beginning to build a simple access database that's going to be able to help us both export the data that we need to and also capture the data that we need to for managing the program. So we're trying to do everything through non-proprietary software like Access.
In addition to that, we've started to look at, because this field has seen a lot of surveys developed in the last few years. There's a couple of reports that have come out from the western part of the United States, which have struggled with this and put a large amount of money into essentially what are behavioral, attitudinal, and knowledge surveys. And we, of course, are going to snitch some of those and create some of those, create some questionnaires and ask some survey questions of individuals which go to the behavioral and the knowledge barriers that individuals face in attempting to convert. And they shouldn't be underestimated. They're part of this process. Mm-hmm. And we are looking at that. My guess is that we will have pretty good data within 6 months.
One final question from audience, and we'd like to thank everyone for submitting their questions. Following the presentation, we will follow up with those of you who weren't able to get your questions asked. Considering this comes in from Benjamin Zintron, can you be more specific as to the role the Source Bank plays in energizing the launch and retrofit program? Criteria for participating, how do you fit them into the process? And can you talk a bit about, within your specific community, what, if financing is a barrier to the adoption of retrofits? And if so, what types of ways of communicating about it or new programs are you considering that could help overcome that barrier?
Right. So this is also an excellent question, because it's if one were to ask the other cities involved in the Better Buildings program, the issue of financing is proving to be a real challenge for all of them. And this is one of those areas where back when the RFP was issued, there was great hope that PACE might be the financing tool that would help drive a lot of this. As when PACE got stalled, people have been left scrambling for other alternatives. So we went with a loan loss reserve model where essentially we're in negotiations with the local branch of a commercial bank to take a portion of the grant money and set it up as essentially collateral within that bank, so that they can make home improvement loans according to specific criteria. The homeowner would have to be from University Park. They'd have to come in with their home performance with Energy Star report. This is not for granite countertops. This is just money for energy efficiency upgrades. But they would essentially be able to loan the money to those individuals at a very attractive interest rate and not have the loan be secured, because the loan is essentially being secured by the town putting up a portion of the grant money as collateral. We've been very fortunate in that the local branch manager saw this as essentially a community banking opportunity. So if you go back to our logic model about leveraging community assets, and it's all about whom you trust, half the town banks there anyway, and she knows lots of people here, and she likes this town and wants to get more of its business. So she was willing to really put her neck out and look for ways to try and make a loan product that works. Because the program is so new, we have not yet had anybody go to the bank for financing, but we know that 2 people of the 15 that have gotten their retrofits done so far, 2 of them are entertaining a financing option, both of them with the local bank. So in the next couple of weeks, we're going to be negotiating with her. In fact, we have a meeting on Friday to kind of finalize how that financing would work out. Is it an issue in our community? The answer is it will be, but I don't know to what extent it will be compared to other communities. And that will be something that I think the broader spectrum of Better Buildings data, it'll be interesting to see. I think in our community, I would probably put transaction barriers above financial barriers, just the comfort of having a contractor in your home. But this is why we're kind of, we have some anxiety about the fact that we need to play catch up with the baseline data, because we want to understand to what extent is financing a barrier in this community. We need to figure that out.
Yeah. Just very quickly to add, banks have been very reluctant to, particularly the bigger banks, to get involved in creating these new instruments. In my past career, I had a lot of contact with that issue, particularly in the poverty field, and I've been delightfully surprised by their willingness to participate. This is a very large bank, and it's the first time that I've seen them moving in that direction, quite frankly.
That concludes the talk by Mayor John Tabori and Chuck Wilson. We would like to thank Mayor Tabori and Chuck for joining us this afternoon. Mayor Tabori and Chuck, do you have any final thoughts for our audience?
I guess I'd just like to thank you all for the opportunity to speak about our program, and I hope you enjoyed it, and please, we welcome questions, so you can send us emails. I can't speak for Chuck, but I review my emails every day, so we'd be glad to entertain questions.
Yes, thanks very much. And my parting comment would simply be the last conclusion, which is it's up to us now to hit those numbers and to see if this model is replicable and can be proven. So that's the challenge that lays before us in the next 2 years.
Thank you. This talk will be made available through Yale iTunes University. You can also follow us on Twitter for updates about the speaker series and new developments in energy efficiency policy, technology, investment, and community engagement at Yale Blueprint. The talk will also be made available on our YouTube channel at Blueprint for Efficiency. If you would like a copy of the presentation, please visit the website of the Yale Center for Business and the Environment. The presentation will be under the Carbon Finance Speaker Series for this particular talk.